Many Jews have faith in the ability to foretell the arrival of the Messiah and identify him as the one who would usher in a new era of true salvation for the Jewish people. There have been numerous false predictions of the Messiah's arrival during the past 2,000 years, each time with grave consequences for society at large. So what's new now? Is he back? Let's take a look at it. In modern parlance, anything that defies these purported laws of nature is often referred to as a miracle. However, the inhabitants of ancient Israel lacked a scriptural term for nature, thus they were unaware that there were rules governing their relationship with the natural world. Similar to how our understanding of God's creation has progressed over time, so has the Hebrew language. The modern Hebrew word tevah can mean either soul or God's world. It wasn't in use until the 12th century and may have come from the Hebrew word tavah, which means to press down or to produce an impression. Signet rings, known in Hebrew as tevah, typically feature a seal. King's calls were used to make an imprint or an edict representing the king's authority and signature, according to Esther chapter 8, verse 8. It's not a big surprise that God's fingerprints and name are throughout creation. The very existence of the mountains, oceans, birds, and air itself attests to the fact that He is Lord over all. Stopping to take in the sights, sounds, smells, and feelings of the world around us is all it takes to recognize it as His revelation to us. However, for many years, we failed to see the hand of God in the natural world because we take it for granted. That is, unless some extraordinary event occurs. These days, the phrase in Hebrew for miracle means, quite literally, reverse of tevah. Getting up high is a necessity. In modern Hebrew, the term for flagpole is nis. From its elevated vantage point, it offers unparalleled views of the landscape. This is the mechanism through which God performs His miracles. Over time, the general public begins to recognize them. When compared to the hidden wonders that are all around us, the Jewish view of miracles tends to downplay this amazing evidence of God's work. The old city of Jerusalem is home to a flagpole where the Israeli flag flies proudly. The sages of Judaism agree on one issue when it comes to miracles. The one to whom the miraculous is occurring does not recognize the miracle, as in the case of a newborn child. It's easy to overlook the miraculousness of everyday happenings like hearing a heartbeat or watching an acorn grow into a towering oak tree. Hasidic Rabbi Brownstein explains that a child born during Israel's 40 years of wandering in the desert would have grown up thinking that manna dropping from heaven every day was the norm. One of the parts of the morning prayers of a religious Jew includes thanking God for your wonders that are every day before us. In this respect, contemporary Judaism differs from Christianity, which often gives disproportionate weight to miracles attributed to Yeshua and other divinely inspired figures. The modern Jewish worldview, on the other hand, rejects the idea that God meddles in human matters. However, the miracles Yeshua accomplished are fundamentally Jewish. Yeshua, the extremely Jewish and extraordinary miracle worker, God our Savior, has always intended to bring about salvation, which is spelled Yeshua in Hebrew. Yeshua was a Jewish miracle worker of great skill. Yeshua has Mashiach, also known as Jesus the Messiah, and at other times referred to as the Anointed One, will work miracles for the Jewish people. At the time of God's judgment and salvation of the world, the prophet Isaiah foretold the following supernatural events that would take place in his writings. Blind eyes will be opened, and the ears of the deaf will be unstopped. Then the speechless will shout for joy, and the walking impaired will bound about like deer. The following four miraculous acts were performed by Yeshua to demonstrate His divine authority and messiahship. Number 1. Give sight back to a person who was born blind. Scriptures like Exodus chapter 4 verse 11 and chapter 34 verse 7 suggest that God is solely to blame when a baby is born with a defect. Therefore, only God or His Messiah could restore normal function in the event of such a disability. To the Pharisees, after healing a man born blind, Yeshua said, "Neither this guy nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God would be exhibited in him." That's from the book of John, chapter 9, verse 3. It is recorded that when Yeshua touched a leper, He made him clean. See Mark chapter 1 verses 40 through 44 among other places. The Sanhedrin, or Jewish Supreme Court, decided to investigate. They started keeping an eye on Yeshua to see if he was the promised Messiah. As a result, somebody looked into it. And 3 days after his death, Lazarus was brought back to life by Yeshua. After a person dies, Jewish tradition holds that their soul remains physically present for 3 days. It is during this time that the dead can supposedly be resurrected. The soul is gone after 3 days, and the body cannot be resurrected unless God intervenes through his Messiah. On the 4th day, Yeshua brought his close friend Lazarus back to life. It's all for the praise of God, so that the Son of God may be lifted. John chapter 11, verse 4. Furthermore, after being buried for 3 days, the Messiah, who was God in human form, rose from the dead. But it wasn't all the good he did that day. Jesus had his hands full with other things at the time. If every idea ever had to be put on paper, there wouldn't be room for anyone or anything else on earth. It is generally agreed that Yeshua was a miracle worker. The Jewish Talmud also acknowledges their existence. It is unfortunate, however, that some people attribute Yeshua's miracles to witchcraft. The Pharisees frequently kept an eye on Yeshua and questioned him about the miracles he was performing and whence he got his strength. Despite the religious leaders' claims that Yeshua cast out demons by using Beelzebub's power, or Satan, Yeshua insisted that he did whatever he did in the name and by the authority of the Father in heaven. If a prophet or dreamer of dreams tells you, "Let us go after the other gods whom you have not known, and let us serve them," ignore them. The Lord your God is trying to see if you love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul. A verse from the Bible says, "You shall follow the Lord your God and fear him, and you shall fulfill his commands, listen to his voice, serve him, and cleave to him." References: Deuteronomy chapter 13, verses 1 through 4. Christians have been actively preaching the gospel and baptizing new converts in every country on earth for about 2,000 years. As Christians go to previously unreachable regions, the gospel is spread throughout the world in the modern era. But the land where it all began, Israel, is also the one place where the gospel has met the most resistance. Even though they live in the same location where Jesus did, most Israelis today do not believe Jesus to be their Messiah. The fact that Israel is a popular tourist destination for Christians makes this statistic all the more startling. Many Israelis today may not know who this hero was, yet they nevertheless flock to visit the places where he lived, taught, and worked miracles. Believers in Jesus who are of Israeli heritage are dismayed by this news. But the Spirit of the Lord is being stirred up in Israel. Israeli believers have had a great need for discipleship, and a grassroots ministry led by Israeli Christians has been rapidly expanding to meet that need. To meet the need for domestic ministry and leadership training for Messianic Jews, One for Israel Bible College and Seminary was established. It's not far from the holy city of Jerusalem in the Mediterranean Sea. Yossi Ovadia, a famous Jewish preacher, famously observed, "Until the college was there, the only way we could educate our young generation was to send them to America. So in order for us to read the Bible, we need to learn English? Stop thinking that way." Bible students at the university have been instrumental in the expansion of a diverse ministry known as One for Israel during the past few decades. They are exploiting the fact that they are the only evangelical school in the world to teach in Hebrew to reach Israelis with the gospel in a way that resonates with them. And there has been a significant development. Students addressing the tumultuous history of relations between Israel and Palestine in a seminary course has caught the attention of One for Israel, which may seem paradoxical. The percentage of Arabs who identify as believers has increased dramatically over time. Not bad for a school located north of Tel Aviv, where Arab Israelis and Palestinian believers make up 1/3 of the current student body. Pastors from both the Jewish and Arab faiths enrolled in the first class of a master's degree designed for top leaders and ministers. Some students, like Shemas Ashfor, an Arab student from Nazareth, Israel, say things like, "God is for all of us, and it helps me understand how wonderful God is and how trustworthy He is, and it's not essential what background we come from." This is not a coincidence. It is the realization of Israel's prophecy concerning the Messiah Jesus, who the prophet said would do more than restore the people of Israel. This mending of fences is amazing in that it exemplifies what happens when Christians unite in Jesus, and it's a blessing in that it motivates novel approaches to minister outside the confines of the seminary. The leaders of One for Israel believe that making inroads into the Jewish community is the most effective way to evangelize Israel's population. The institution provides a foundation in the Bible and apologetics for all of One for Israel's blooming missions. This course will hone your abilities in sermon writing, the application of technology, and the examination of the intersection of religion and culture. Online discipleship for new Christians, seminars for women in ministry, initiatives to help Messianic troops grow spiritually, services for at-risk mothers, and support groups for Holocaust survivors are just a few of the creative ways they've reached out to the community. In order to take the gospel beyond the confines of the church, each year's crop of graduates from One for Israel Bible College and Seminary receive a full toolkit of tools. The central tenet of the Christian belief found in the New Testament is that Jesus Christ is the divine offspring of God the Father. This is made clear by the fact that the next passages emphasize how important it is to comprehend, acknowledge, and believe the following about Jesus. Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 through 17. When Jesus arrived in the region of Caesarea Philippi, he started questioning his disciples by asking, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" in response to the question. In response, Simon Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied to him and said, "Blessed are you, Simon, because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, rather my Father in heaven has done so." In John chapter 20, verses 30 and 31, "Therefore Jesus also performed many other signs in the sights of his disciples, but they are not included in this book. However, these have been written so that while you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and so that you may have life in his name." However, the scriptural witness to the Son of God did not begin with the New Testament. Instead, it comes for the first time in the Old Testament in the form of Son, with one exception. Despite the fact that the number of references to the Son of God in the Old Testament is not even close to being as numerous as those in the New Testament, these Old Testament allusions are incredibly significant and have assisted Christians in understanding that Jesus Christ is in fact the Son of God and what the Bible means by this phrase. That's all for the video today. We'll be right back. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe to our channel.